height, dim the streets in moonlight bright. We dissect the cinematic art, real by real we pull apart.
Welcome back to Real Talk. I'm your host, Josh, and today we are diving into a film that has quickly become a cornerstone of modern coming-of-age cinema, 2019's Booksmart. This vibrant, heartfelt, and often a downright hilarious story marks Olivia Wilde's directorial debut and features standout performances from Kaitlyn and Beanie Feldstein. Together, they bring to life Amy and Molly, two high-achieving high school seniors who, on the eve of graduation, realize they've spent so much time chasing academic perfection that they've missed out on all the fun their peers have been having. Determined to balance the scales, the duo embarks on a wild, chaotic, and deeply emotional night that they'll never forget. Booksmart is more than just a comedy. It's a film that redefines what a teen movie can be. In a genre, as we know, is often dominated by male perspectives, Booksmart shifts the focus to female friendship and individuality. This is a story that celebrates the beauty and complexity of platonic love while exploring the emotional and social turbulence of growing up. With at times a razor-sharp wit and a vibrant visual style, the film balances some laugh-out-loud moments with poignant, relatable truths about self-discovery, identity, and letting go. For me, though, while Booksmart absolutely shines in so many areas, it just narrowly misses reaching the upper echelon of truly iconic coming-of-age films. Maybe it's the pacing or the way certain supporting characters feel underdeveloped, something we'll unpack later in the episode, but there's a subtle gap between good and great here. In this episode, I'm going to take a closer look at the themes that make Booksmart so refreshing, discussing how it fits into the broader landscape of the coming-of-age genre, and explore its cultural and cinematic impact. Whether you've seen it once or a dozen times, this is a film that still deserves a deep dive into its layers, nuances, and laughs. So buckle up, because much like Amy and Molly's unforgettable adventure, this episode is going to be a mix of fun, reflection, and a little chaos. So let's get into it. Let's start by talking about the mastermind behind Booksmart, Olivia Wilde, and the world in which this film was born. If you're a movie buff like me, you probably know Olivia Wilde as an actress. She's been in movies like Tron Legacy and Her, not to mention TV hits like House. But with Booksmart, she stepped behind the camera, and let me tell you, it was a pretty great debut. Wilde's transition to directing wasn't just a casual career move. It was a leap fueled by passion. She has talked about how much she loves storytelling and how directing gave her the freedom to tell the kind of stories she wasn't seeing enough of on screen. When you think about teen comedies, they're usually centered on boys, their shenanigans, and their relationships, right? Wilde wanted to flip that script. She wanted to create something hilarious, heartfelt, and most importantly, authentic to the experience of women. And something that's really cool about Wilde's approach is how much intention she brought to the film. She didn't just want to make a fun movie. She wanted to champion diversity, challenge stereotypes, and also to create something that would resonate deeply with the audience. She saw Booksmart as a chance to show teenage girls as they really are, complicated, flawed, funny, and real. Now, let's just zoom out for a second and talk about the cultural context, because Booksmart didn't happen in a vacuum. It came out in 2019, which was a pretty interesting time for Hollywood. This is a few years into the Me Too movement, which had pushed a lot of overdue conversation about representation, gender dynamics, and power in the film industry. and audiences were demanding more diverse voices, and Hollywood was finally starting to listen, at least a little bit. At the same time, we see indie films having a bit of a renaissance, and streaming platforms were giving smaller, character-driven stories a bigger platform. Movies didn't have to be giant tentpole blockbusters to make an impact anymore. Booksmart really fit perfectly into this landscape. It felt fresh and modern, but still had that deeply personal style to it. Like a story that couldn't have come from anyone other than Olivia Wilde and the team that she set up. Another thing that makes Booksmart feel so of its time is how it approaches themes like sexuality and friendship. Take Amy, for example. She's an out lesbian, but her sexuality isn't the focal point of her character. It's just a part of who she is. That might seem small, but it's a huge step forward for the LGBTQ plus representation, especially in teen films. And then there's the friendship between Amy and Molly, which is messy and beautiful, and honestly, it is the heart of the whole movie. In a lot of ways, Booksmart feels like the next evolution of the coming-of-age genre. It takes the raw honesty of movies like The Breakfast Club and Lady Bird, but updates it with humor and an inclusivity that feels so right for the 21st century. And it's not just about reflecting on what it means to grow up, it's about showing that everyone's version of growing up looks just a little bit different, and that's okay. It's the way it should be. So when you think about Olivia Wilde's vision and the cultural moment in which Booksmart landed, it's clear that this movie wasn't shot in the dark. It was carefully crafted. It was deeply intentional, and it tapped into something real and timely, very much of the moment. And that's a big part of what makes it so special, even if, as we'll discuss later, it didn't quite stick the landing for me. So let's talk about the heart of Booksmart. That's its story and its characters. First, the plot is simple but so effective. Amy and Molly, two best friends and academic powerhouses, have spent their high school years chasing perfection, straight A's, extracurricular accolades, and Ivy League dreams. But on the eve of their graduation, they have an epiphany that shakes their world. They realize their peers, who seemingly spent more time partying and goofing off, are also headed to top-tier colleges. Cue the existential crisis. They worked their butts off, missed out on all the fun, and for what? This realization sparks the kind of impulsive, life-changing decision only a teen movie could deliver. They're going to cram 4 years of missed teenage shenanigans into one night. What follows is a chaotic, at times laugh out loud, and surprisingly heartfelt adventure as they try to track down the ultimate end-of-year party. But, of course, the night doesn't go as planned. Instead, it becomes a roller coaster of misadventures, hard truths, and moments of genuine connection that force them to confront not just their assumptions about others, but also about themselves and each other. Now let's dig into those characters because they are everything. Amy and Molly are a dream team, flawed, relatable, and a lot of fun to watch. Kaitlyn Dever's Amy is this sweet, shy, and introspective girl who's quietly grappling with her own insecurities while trying to step out of her comfort zone. Then there's Beanie Feldstein's Molly, who's loud, ambitious, and almost too confident. Molly's got this tendency to judge others and assume she's always right, which makes her journey of self-awareness so satisfying to watch. And I think something that makes their dynamic so special is that it actually feels authentic. You can tell these two generally love each other. They're not afraid to challenge or call each other out. They have that rare kind of friendship where they're equally supportive but brutally honest. And it's both hilarious and heartwarming to see that play out on screen. And the supporting cast is just as memorable. Jared, played by Skylar Gisondo, is one of those characters you think you've seen 100 times before. The rich, over-the-top kid trying way too hard to be liked. But Booksmart does something unexpected with him. It gives him depth. By the end, you realize there's so much more to Jared than the flashy car and cringy behavior. And then there's Gigi, who's played by Billie Lourd, who is just chaos incarnate. Every time she shows up, she steals the scene with her unpredictable, almost otherworldly energy. She's like a walking, talking fever dream, and you can't help but love her. I think something that also sets apart Booksmart is its focus on the female friendship. This isn't a story about two girls fighting over a boy or some cliche love triangle. It's about the kind of love that often gets overshadowed in movies. That's that platonic love. Amy and Molly's friendship is the heart of the film, and it's so refreshing to see a coming-of-age story that celebrates that. Sure, there's romance sprinkled in, but it's never the main focus. Instead, we get a story about two girls who are learning to let each other grow, even if it means growing apart just a little. And that's another thing. The movie isn't afraid to challenge the tropes of the genre. It's not just about wild parties and high school drama. It's about redefining who you are and realizing that people are so much more than the labels you've assigned them. Whether it's Amy and Molly reevaluating their classmates or learning to see each other in a new light, the film is constantly reminding us that everyone has layers. So while the plot may follow a familiar structure, it's the characters, flawed, messy, and human, that make Booksmart feel fresh, relatable, and really impossible not to root for. So let's talk about one of the most compelling aspects of Booksmart, its themes and symbolism. This movie isn't just about two best friends going on a wild adventure. It's about everything happening beneath the surface. It's about growing up, learning who you are, and realizing that the boxes people try to put you in don't define you. And then it's all of that wrapped up in this vibrant, chaotic package that really does kind of feel true to the high school experience, or at least our memory of it. So Booksmart is a story of self-discovery. So Amy and Molly start the movie with a clear sense of who they think they are. The hardworking, ultra-focused students who sacrifice fun for success. But as the night unfolds, they realize there's more to life and more to themselves than just being the smart girls. What makes this theme hit so hard is how relatable it is. Who hasn't had the moment where they just thought, wait a minute, am I missing something here? Then there's the theme of societal expectations. Molly in particular is a character shaped by how she thinks the world perceives her. She's constantly trying to prove that she's better, smarter, or more capable than everyone else. But through her journey, she learns that success isn't just about winning. It's about connection and understanding other people's perspectives. And let's talk about Amy's arc for a second. What I love about her character is how her queerness, her lesbian identity is treated as just part of who she is. It's not this big dramatic plot point. It's just there. She's allowed to be awkward and shy and nervous about her crush, just like any other teenager. And that subtlety feels almost revolutionary because it normalizes her experience instead of making it some kind of centerpiece of her identity. At the same time, Booksmart nails the complexity of friendship. Amy and Molly's relationship is the backbone of the film, and we get to see how even the closest friendships can have cracks. Their arguments and misunderstandings feel raw and real, but so does their reconciliation. A reminder that growing up means learning how to love your friends, flaws and all, and sometimes letting go of the control you think you have over them. Now let's take a minute to go into some of the film's visual storytelling, because Booksmart really is rich in its visuals as much as it is in its dialogue. And one thing I noticed right away was the use of mirrors and reflections throughout the film. Think about the scenes where characters are literally looking at themselves, whether it's in a mirror or in the pool's surface. It's this clever way of saying, here's how they see themselves, but is it the truth? It ties back to the idea of self-perception versus reality, which is such a huge theme in the movie. And how about the color palette? Everything in here is bright, bold, and a little overwhelming, which is just like being a teenager. The neon lights and energetic cinematography capture the chaos and intensity of Amy and Molly's night. But it's not just about making things look cool. It's about putting you in their world. You feel the highs and lows right along with them because the visuals are so emotionally charged. The film also plays with contrasts in a way that's really smart. You've got these scenes that pit academic rigor against social freedom. Molly's early disdain for her classmates is rooted in this belief that you can't have both. You can't be a party animal and still get into a good college. But as the movie progresses, we see that this binary kind of thinking doesn't hold up. The film uses its characters and situations to show that life is messy and multifaceted. One more thing that I notice that stands out is how Booksmart uses music and movement to amplify its themes. So remember the underwater pool scene. It's really dreamy and surreal, but it's also a turning point for Amy's character. The water blurs everything and makes it hard to see what's real. Just like how Amy is struggling to figure out what's real in her life, it's a small but powerful metaphor for the confusion of growing up. And I think what makes these themes and symbols work so well is that they're never heavy-handed. You're not sitting there thinking, wow, what a metaphor. Instead, they hit you on a subconscious level, making you feel something before you even realize what's happening, which is what great storytelling is all about, isn't it? So whether it's the mirror reminding us to look deeper, the bright colors pulling us into this chaos of adolescence, or the nuanced portrayal of friendship and identity, Booksmart weaves its themes and symbolism into every corner of the film. It is funny, it's heartfelt, and it's visually striking, and all at once. Now, it might not reach the level of, say, Lady Bird for me. It's still a movie that resonates on so many levels. I mean, what do you think? Does this film hit home for you? Right, well, let's talk about how Booksmart was received and the impact it's had since its release. First off, critics absolutely love this film, and for good reason. I mean, the writing is sharp, the casting is spot on, and Olivia Wilde, in her debut, showed an impressive level of confidence behind the camera. Many of the reviews I read praised how the movie managed to be both extremely funny and deeply heartfelt, and that's a balance that can be tricky to pull off, especially in a genre as crowded as coming-of-age films. Publications like Rolling Stone, the New York Times, and Variety all gave glowing reviews. They applauded its modern take on high school life and its celebration of female friendship. But here's where things get interesting. Despite that critical acclaim, Booksmart didn't exactly make a lot of waves at the box office. It grossed around $25 million worldwide on its budget of $6 million, so it's not terrible at all, but not the runaway success it could have been. And honestly, it says more about what was coming in COVID than the actual film itself. I mean, in a world where franchise blockbusters and superhero films dominate, it's tough for mid-budget, character-driven movies. But add to that the shortened time at the end of 2019, people are getting sick. It just made for things to be a little foggy. And it becomes frustrating because Booksmart did have all the ingredients for a hit. Glowing reviews, talented cast, and strong word of mouth. People were liking the film. Now, if we fast forward to today, Booksmart has really cultivated its following now. A lot of people that missed it in theaters were able to discover it later on, whether it be on streaming or like an HBO kind of thing. A lot of people that missed it in the theater knew it now, and they really got a chance to shine. And that's one of the beautiful things about modern cinema. Even if a film doesn't blow up right away, it can still find its audience over time. And so many of us have more high-tech video watching equipment in our homes, nicer TVs, better ability to watch high-resolution pictures. So there is the divide between home and theater has gotten smaller. Now, one of the reasons that Booksmart resonates so deeply with people, I think, was its progressive representation. I mean, it's not just ticking boxes for diversity, because it genuinely embraces its characters' identities. I mean, we talked about Amy already, but her sexuality isn't the centerpiece of her story. It's just one even small part of who she is. And that kind of representation feels natural and refreshing, like what you would find with your own friends, especially in a genre where the LGBTQ plus characters have often been relegated to stereotypes or side plots. To be front and center in the film is so important. Beyond that, though, Booksmart nails the experience of being a teenager in a way that feels authentic to this generation. I mean, when this movie came out, my children I had a senior, a freshman, and a sophomore. So they were all three of my daughters were going through this at the same time as this movie. And it wasn't just about hijinks or heartfelt moments. The film was about little details, like the way characters text each other, or the casual inclusion of a diverse range of experiences. I mean, these are the things that make the movie feel timeless while being very much of its time. And you can even see Booksmart's influence in Hollywood, especially in the way it opened doors for more inclusive, female-led coming-of-age stories. Films like Plan B and Moxie have come along to carry a lot of that same energy, that fun, heartfelt, unapologetically focused on perspectives that haven't always been front and center. So while Booksmart wasn't a box office juggernaut, its legacy is alive and well. This is one of those movies that I think probably gets better the more you think about it, and its impact on the genre and how stories about young women are told is undeniable. This is the kind of film that inspires the next generation to say, yeah, I can tell my story too. I mean, and that is a win no matter what the box office numbers say. All right. So here's where I start to get a little opinionated. So let's talk about why Booksmart matters. Because it absolutely does, even with the few imperfections. This movie is a shining example of what happens when you tell a story with authenticity and let it reflect the diversity of real-life experiences. This is a love letter to adolescence in all its awkward, messy, beautiful glory. But it's also a film that makes space for voices we don't always get to hear in coming-of-age genre. Booksmart is set apart by how it approaches representation. This is a movie that is never trying to check boxes. Everything feels natural. The characters aren't defined by their identities, but those identities are integral to who they are. Amy is a lesbian, but that's not her only story. It's just part of her. The film doesn't make a big deal out of it or turn it into a lesson. Instead, it lets her awkward first crush play out with the same hilarity and cringe as any straight characters would in other teen comedies. It feels honest, and that's refreshing. And then there's the friendship at the heart of the movie. Molly and Amy, their relationship feels real, not in a glossy, Instagram filtered way, but in the messy, unfiltered way that best friends really are. They argue, they annoy each other, they hype each other up in the kind of over-the-top ride or die way that only a best friend can. Their dynamic isn't just about being funny, it's about being human. It shows how important those friendships are at that stage of life and how they can define who you are and who you want to be. But when we go beyond the humor and the heartfelt moments, Booksmart does do something even bigger. I think it does redefine what a teen movie can be. So often, coming-of-age films focus on romance or rebellion, and they're usually told through the lens of male characters. And Booksmart takes this whole idea and flips the script. It says that girls can have wild adventures too. They can be funny and flawed and ambitious and ridiculous. And it's empowering to see that on screen, especially for young women like my daughters who might not always see themselves represented in that way. Now, here's where I think the film stumbles a bit. While the core friendship is rock solid, some of the supporting characters and subplots don't get quite the same level of attention. For example, Jared, the rich kid with a heart of gold, is great, but I wanted more depth. Same with the pacing. It felt like the movie was rushing to pack in as much as possible. And some moments that could have hit harder, emotionally, just didn't have the time to breathe. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not enough to derail the movie, but it does keep it from reaching that top tier status for me. Still, the broader takeaway here is clear. Booksmart is a reminder that growing up is never a straight line. It is messy, it is chaotic, but it is also filled with moments of joy, heartbreak, and everything in between. And it shows us that there is no one-size-fits-all way to be a teenager or to figure out who you are. And that is why the film matters. It's not just about representing different experiences. It's about making those experiences feel universal. You don't have to be a teenage girl. You don't have to be LGBTQI+, or academically obsessed to see yourself in this movie. You just have to have been a teenager who's ever felt like they were trying to figure it all out, which, let's face it, is all of us. And maybe that's why Booksmart has found such a devoted audience. It resonates because it's real, even when it is funny. It's a film that says you're not alone feeling like a hot mess sometimes. And honestly, we could all use that reminder. So, it didn't crack my top tier of coming-of-age classics. It's still a film I'd recommend without hesitation. If nothing else, it's worth it just for the sheer joy of watching Amy and Molly hype each other up before heading into chaos. That alone makes it a win in my book. All right, folks. So we reached the end of the deep dive into Booksmart. I have to say, this film really is a breath of fresh air in the coming-of-age genre. It's sharp, it's full of heart, and it brings a much-needed focus on female friendships and representation. But here's where I land. For me, Booksmart is still a solid 6.5 out of 10. Now, before you start throwing tomatoes, or, let's be real, drafting your strongly worded emails or hate onto threads or wherever you go, hear me out. There is so much to love about this movie. The humor is top-notch, and Kaitlyn Dever and Beanie Feldstein are phenomenal as Amy and Molly. Their chemistry is natural and real, and you completely believe in their bond. Plus, Olivia Wilde's direction is vibrant and bold, and giving the film an infectious energy that matches the chaos of that one wild night. But here's the thing, something about Booksmart just didn't hit all the right notes for me. Like I said, the pacing felt a little uneven in parts, like the film was trying to cram in too many moments at once, and not all of them landed. And while I appreciate the effort to give the supporting cast some memorable quirks, a lot of the male characters felt more like caricatures than fully fleshed out people. That's not to say they weren't entertaining, because they absolutely were. But I think the film might have benefited from just a bit more depth in those areas. Still, as a film, I am glad it exists. I'm glad I watched it. I'm glad I've seen it twice. It's smart, it's funny, and it's refreshing. And hey, even if it doesn't crack my top tier, I can see why it became a favorite for so many people. Now, next week, we're going to switch gears a little. We're going to head back over to France for 2014's Girlhood. This is an absolutely stunning drama about a young woman finding her identity in the outskirts of Paris. It's powerful, it's visually gorgeous, and it tackles some pretty big themes about race, class, and gender. If you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend checking it out before the next episode so you can follow along with me. And as always, I want to hear from you. Did Booksmart hit the mark for you? Do you feel like there were areas that it stumbled? Let me know your thoughts. Shoot me an email, drop a comment, or send me a message on social media. You can find me at Threads, Instagram, and Blue Sky at Real Talk. I'm on X occasionally at Real Talk Pod, and you can always email me, therealrealtalk@gmail.com, or just comment right here on this episode, wherever you're listening. And also, while you're at it, let me know what other films you'd like to see covered on the show. I'm always looking to create a longer list to watch. Now, until next time, keep watching, keep loving, and keep those reels rolling. Thanks, everybody.
Underneath the sun's green, 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 talking reels and all their schemes. Dusty scenes and dreams unfold, stories told in shadows bold. Gritty plots and whispers tight, dim the streets in moonlight bright. We dissect the cinematic art, real by real we pull apart. The real talk where voices play with velvet words and starlit sway, reviewing tales both light and dark, classic films that leave a mark. Dive deep into celluloid night, critique the legends in our sight. Every frame a layer appeal, truth and intrigue